Washington is doing an absolutely tremendous job on the recruiting trail.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into a special bonus edition of the Locked On Huskies podcast. I'm Roman Tomashoff. I'm the site editor with Huskies Wire. Thanks for making this your first watch or first listen of the days. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network. And just a quick reminder to all you everydayers out there, wherever you're getting this podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, wherever that might be, please make sure to click that subscribe button, click that little bell as well, so you don't miss when we post a new show, because these bonus shows like this, you never want to miss them. And we're coming at you 10:15 as I hit record on this on signing day morning, and it has already been a truly just wild day. We'll talk about some of that, including Dre Pollard's flip to Stanford in a little bit, but the biggest news of the day so far for Washington is after picking up 4-star wide receiver Jordan Clay on Tuesday night, the Huskies are able to add a commitment and a signature early on Wednesday morning from 4-star wide receiver Trez Davis, the former Tulane commit, who was also apparently considering Houston before ending up at Washington. He took an official visit for the Purdue game a couple of weeks ago, and this is another absolutely massive addition to this 2026 class, because it's not just the fact that, we talked about a lot of this with Jordan Clay already, with what it means to now you look at this wide receivers class as it is in its entirety with Dre Pollard's flip as well. But that's one of the reasons I wanted to hold off for a little while on recording and talking about this, just to make sure that everything did fall into place in that way, because now Washington's entire receivers class is from outside of its normal recruiting footprint. Blaise LaVista from Illinois, Jordan Clay, Texas, Mason James, Oklahoma, Trez Davis, Louisiana. This is a truly incredible job from Jedd Fisch, Matt Doherty, Jimmy Doherty, Kevin Cummings, this entire Washington recruiting staff, to be able to get another top 200 player in the boat, another guy from, again, outside of the normal recruiting footprint, from Louisiana. All of that is tremendous. And then you're able to pair that with what he's able to do on the field. Man, this kid is so much fun to watch. You go and you read through the 247 little notes about him. One thing that I was unaware of is that he played through a significant wrist injury throughout his senior season and still averaged close to 23 yards per catch. And you look at everything. He's listed at 6 foot, 180 pounds. He's so explosive. He's got that high end, long distance speed that you need to stretch the field if you want to line him up outside at the Z position at wide receiver. All of that is so fun and really enticing, but it's not just that. It's the fact that he was able to produce at a really high level in high school in a really tough environment to do so. There's a whole lot of really great talent coming out of the state of Louisiana every single year. And that's just another reason that you got to give your props to Jedd Fisch and this coaching staff for being able to get in there and just get a foothold with one of these blue chip prospects. And as you continue to climb the recruiting rankings at number 13, this is one of those guys who I'm getting a little tired of this really repetitive comment that I make of playing early, but it's also extremely true, because this is another one of those guys who, depending on what wide receiver looks like, you've already seen Audric Harris enter the transfer portal. I wouldn't be surprised if you see some other guys at that position choose to do so as well for one reason or another. And having a guy like this who can play early and be productive for you early with the athleticism and the route running prowess that he brings to the table is really, really enticing. And it's really hard to pass that up, because we just saw a whole bunch of freshman receivers play and produce in Chris Lawson, Raiden Vinesbright, and Desmond Roebuck. And now we're probably going to see more of that in 2026 with at least 2 of these guys, which is a really fun thing to think about, because as you want to continue just developing that position, it's about getting high-end talent through the door. You look at all of these elite programs around the country, it doesn't matter what year they are, the best players will play. And again, that's just one of the things that's so exciting about what this group is going to look like in 2026, because without Denzel Boston, who is way more than likely on his way to the NFL draft, there's a lot to, I don't want to say be desired in this room. I think there's just a lot to like, but there are a lot of question marks at the same time, because so many of these guys are just so young and so unproven, where Desmond Roebuck and Raiden Vinesbright and Rashid Williams are the guys who are going to be expected to lead that group. I don't know what the transfer portal is going to look like at this position now, where I didn't know if, Corey Barber, Trez Davis, you were going to get one of those guys when I talked about Jordan Clay last night, because it felt like things were truly up in the air at that time and that Trez might have been trending towards Houston. But the fact that you're able to find a way to get that deal done is a really, really nice win for this coaching staff. And again, it just shows that Jedd Fisch and his commitment to expanding Washington's recruiting footprint and selling the brand on the recruiting trail is working, and it's making a big impact because, yes, we've seen that already today. Again, as I'm recording this on Wednesday, when you look at just these high-end guys from the West Coast that are staying close to home, Cody Green, the number one player in California, Gavin Day, one of the top players in Nevada. You look at just some of these other guys from the state of Washington, getting Derek Coleman-Brusa to stay home is a huge win. You look through all of that, that's all tremendous, but pairing all of that with elite talent from around the country is how you truly build a consistent winner in the Big Ten Conference. And this is one of those things that, on a slightly different tangent, you look at the way that Jedd Fisch has continued to build a pro-style West Coast offense that likes to throw the ball all over the place. I think that's a really intriguing just thing to think about in all of this when it comes to Trez Davis in particular, because spreading out the field is something that we've seen it in the Big Ten this season. We've seen it in the majority of Washington's wins. A lot of these other Big Ten teams are not built to combat that. And you combine that with the fact that Washington still has a big, strong, physical Big Ten ready offensive line now with some of these young guys like Paki Finau, like John Mills, Champ Talialia, Cody Green coming in the door as well, Dominic Harris signing as well. You pair all of that with the fact that you show that you can play Big Ten football and you can play that ground and pound style when needed, plus this aerial attack that the best teams in the Big Ten have and can combat, right? The Ohio States, the Michigans, USC, Oregon. We know that Indiana as well now. We know that those teams can do that. But when you want to continue to establish yourself in this top group of 5 or 6 teams in the conference, that is one of the ways that you can do it, by continuing to have a high-flying offense that we just haven't seen a lot of these teams produce, where you look at not even just the bottom of the barrel in the Big Ten, but some of these middle-of-the-road teams, like what Iowa has historically been, what Minnesota, Nebraska have historically been over the last 5, 10, however long you want to say. For the most part, like, Washington is building something that it's not necessarily different for all of us who grew up watching Pac-12 football, but for a lot of these Midwestern teams that have just been built in such a big physical, we're going to crowd the box and stop the run on every single play, seeing a guy like Trez Davis come in and just knowing what that does to Washington's offense is a really, really exciting thought. But he's not the only news of the day. We've got so much other stuff that we need to get to from signing day. Right after a message from our good friends over at FanDuel, NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scorers, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. So, not all great news on signing day. We saw 4-star athlete Dre Pollard flip his commitment from Washington to Stanford and sign with them on Wednesday morning. This is one that there's been a lot of smoke coming out about this over the last week, over the last 2 weeks, and I truly don't feel that anything was finalized with that until this morning. It was something I got a lot of questions about. We dropped a whole lot of discussion points about that over in our insiders chat. You can check that out down in the description below. You get a free 2-week trial, and after that, it's $4.99 a month. And that was one of the biggest things that I have just felt throughout this process as it related to Dre Pollard is this is a guy who the 3 positions that he's been touted at are running back, wide receiver, and cornerback. You look at Washington's defensive backs. You got 3 blue chip guys in in Jaron Jones, in Rajon Duncan, and in Gavin Day. You got 3 blue chip wide receivers now in Mason James, Trez Davis, and Jordan Clay. And you've also got a blue chip running back in Brian Bonner, plus a whole lot of returners at that group, specifically Adam Muhammad and Jordan Washington. So there wasn't necessarily a path to early playing time. And it's one of those things where when you look at Dre, he is such a talented football player. There's so much to like about his game, but one of the biggest questions I had was, what is this actually going to look like at the next level? And I don't mean that to run him down in any way. I just mean that in terms of, what is he actually going to play? Because he can fit so well at any of those different spots. And you combine that with the academics of Stanford, I feel like it all wound up making sense. Once the Trez Davis thing came out this morning, I kind of looked at my phone and I said, all right, yeah, this means that Dre is definitely going to wind up at Stanford, because with so many other blue chip wide receivers in the room who are just a little bit more polished at that position because they've spent so much more time playing it compared to a guy like Dre, who again is supremely talented, but just does so many different things. I feel like that might just put him a step behind in terms of maybe his own view of what the roster construction was at Washington when he originally committed. And when you go to Stanford for, the other things, the academic side of things, which I've been told by some sources certainly played into his decision as well, you can't fault anyone for anything along those lines. And again, with the way it traded off with Trez Davis, I don't think that this is anything that Husky fans should get frustrated about, be mad about, because at the very least, you come out with a draw with you're trading a 4-star athlete for a 4-star wide receiver. I think at the end of the day, everything will be okay with that. A couple other names I wanted to mention. I'm still monitoring the status of 3-star tight end Kekua Amua. I've heard some very good things about where Washington might stand with him. He did take an official visit to Auburn over the Iron Bowl weekend, take in what they have to offer, especially after the coaching change at Florida, where he's been committed. So certainly something to monitor there. Maybe things have changed since you've listened to this, but that's just another situation that is a really intriguing one to follow in this 72-hour early signing day window. Another one is 4-star defensive lineman David Schwerzel. Apparently, there's all sorts of rumors flying around right now. If you go check out some of the things that 247 Sports is reporting, even after he committed to UCLA last night, there are some rumors that might not be over and that Washington might be the place where he ends up. And this is going to be a really interesting finish, because we saw Fasiale, who I talked about on this show over the last couple of days, his teammate at O'Day High School here in Seattle, who had been committed to Michigan State, flip and sign with Utah on Wednesday. So if Washington does want to add another defensive lineman, there were a couple of big time moves that they were trying to make that didn't work out, as we saw guys sign all over the country on Wednesday morning. And Schwerzel does seem like a nice option, where I would certainly put him in the boat of guys who need a year or two to develop at the college level. I think that Washington's plan for him is certainly to have him bulk up, have him play mainly 3-tech, while guys like J.D. Hill and Derek Coleman-Brusa, with the burst and athleticism that they bring off the edge, can help them get onto the field a little bit earlier in their careers. So it's certainly a very curious situation, to say the least, for a guy like Schwerzel, who started at UCLA, then flips to Stanford after the coaching change, then goes back to UCLA last night, maybe still winds up at Washington. Again, maybe things have changed since this is a recording, but we'll see. It's just something to monitor, because there are just so many moving pieces in these final weeks, final days. I've had people tell me just in various recruiting offices, like, hey, everyone's trying to flip everyone right now. That's just what's going on in this line of work. And I think that's completely fair. That's just what happens this time of year. So a lot of moving pieces. Make sure you keep a close eye on that one. And another one I'm keeping a very close eye on, speaking of Michigan State, is 4-star offensive tackle Collin Campbell, a product of Arizona, who it doesn't sound like he's going to sign on Wednesday at the very least, with the coaching change that's going on there after Jonathan Smith got fired and they brought in Pat Fitzgerald, who used to be at Northwestern. This is one of those things where if Collin Campbell makes it through the early signing period without signing, because he did also take an official visit to Utah before choosing Michigan State, this is one I'm going to be monitoring very, very closely, because we know Washington was pushing for one more offensive lineman in this cycle. We saw them host Marlon Bright on an official visit, and they were set to get one from Collin Campbell as well, but that didn't end up coming to fruition because he committed to Michigan State just a couple days before he was set to arrive in Seattle. So just one more name where certainly very much fits the same role as Bright, where a true tackle, a really nice, long, athletic body, where it might take him a year or two to develop and add some strength and add some other things to just his frame and his game. But in terms of the athleticism and what he brings to the table, he is a true, really exciting Big Ten tackle project long-term that you should absolutely keep an eye on. Things just with him, those are very early stages of developing at this point in time, but Washington had a significant amount of interest there. So again, just one more name to monitor because there is so much going on this time of year. And the best way to make sure that you're up to date with all of it is to subscribe to Locked On Huskies wherever you get your podcasts. So that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We're there. We're everywhere. We're updating this channel with new content every single day. So please make sure you click that like button, click that little bell so you never miss when we post a new show. Plus, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, drop them right down below in the comments section. And if you're audio only, please give us a 5-star review as it does help us out a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.